Hello, Johanna. Lovely to see you here today. Perhaps you can start by telling us briefly what your education consultancy is all about and your own particular experience.
Thank you, Fiona, for inviting me. I run Lumos Education in central London, and we help both London and international families relocating all over the world. So our aim really is to find education solutions for those families. We have consultants who speak 6 languages and are fully conversant in all global education systems.
Brilliant. And I know you are particularly fond of French and the French language. Can you just explain your background there?
Yes, I'm very interested in France and the French language and studied at the Sorbonne for several years. And we work with a lot of French families and Francophone families, both here in London and internationally.
Great. So you're going to be able to demystify some of these things for our audience. So firstly then, how transferable is the French curriculum? Because we hear all the time that it really is an excellently transferable system. So let's understand it. Please, over to you.
Thank you, Fiona. So the French curriculum is very, very transferable. It's regulated by the French government. So in that sense, all French schools that are regulated by the French government across the world follow exactly the same curriculum. They are inspected by l'Agence d'enseignement français à l'étranger, AEFE, and that body decides whether or not a French school is what they call homologué. If the French school is homologué, they are qualified to teach the French education system, and that system, as I said previously, is recognized globally. So a family, be they Francophone, be they French nationality, or be they British or another nationality, following the French education system can transfer globally without any problems at all.
And that's pretty quickly when they arrive in a new country.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And what we find is that the French schools are very good at communicating with each other. So we have, had families relocating from Azerbaijan, New York, Canada, and they will speak with one another, check exactly where the child is in that curriculum and liaise so that the relocation between the French schools globally is very smooth and easy for the family.
Brilliant, thank you. So can you talk a little about the French schools in the UK and what the options are?
So we have some very good French schools in the UK. Some of those are homologués by l'Agence d'enseignement français à l'étranger. And the most famous one is the Lycée Français Charles de Gaulle in South Kensington. That is a big lycée with several thousand students, and it also has 4 primary schools that feed into it. École de Wix, Marie d'Oliec, École André Malraux, and the South Kensington Primary School, which is actually on the lycée site. That school is also funded directly by the French government. So the fees are quite low.
Mm-hmm.
There are other French schools in London, for example, the Lycée Winston Churchill, which isn't funded directly by the French government, but is also homologué. So children can transfer from that school to any French school abroad. There are some schools which aren't homologué, so certified by the French government, and they teach a slightly different version of the French education system, sometimes combined with aspects of the British system or other systems. So they're slightly different in their approach.
Great. And from very young children as well, I think, isn't it?
Yes, some from 2-3 years old. It depends on the school. So, for example, EIFA, which is based in Marylebone, takes children, I think, from 2 years old in the nursery. And that's a very nice little French school in central London.
And are there any other areas in the UK that you've dealt with?
One, there is in Bristol, Clifton High School, which was teaching French at one point. I'm not sure whether it still is, but there were a lot of French families in Bristol who sent their children to that school.
Great. And of course, international schools in the UK and around the world will obviously help and support native language French.
Absolutely. The international schools will support native language French speakers. Most of those will teach the International Baccalaureate, which is different from the French Bac, which is taught in the French schools. And that's the important differentiation to make. So if you're a French Francophone or family wanting the French education system, you will sit normally the French Baccalaureate in a French school. If you're transferring to an international school, for example, in Brussels, you will most probably do the international baccalaureate, which is not the same as the French bac. There are slight differences.
Thank you for clarifying. So which countries outside the UK do you work with for clients requiring French schools?
Many countries outside the UK we work with for clients requiring French schools. And I'll give a few examples, but most countries will have a French lycée. Most significant countries will have a French lycée. So we work with the French lycée in New York, which does the French education system, but they also offer the high school diploma. So for perhaps a family with an American father and a French mother, it's the best of both worlds. We work with the French lycée in Toronto, and they offer the French bac as well. And we also work with the Lycée de Baku in Azerbaijan, and they offer, absolutely, the French system, which, liaises with all the other French schools globally. So wherever you are in the world, you're very close to a French school.
And then Switzerland.
Yeah. So Switzerland, there are French schools, but there are, of course, schools that follow the Swiss education system. We work with a lot of the boarding schools in Switzerland, such as there are very many.
Yeah.
It's difficult to name just one, but they will follow lots of, a combination of different education systems. But most Swiss people will attend a state Swiss school, not a private Swiss school, and that will follow the Swiss education system, which is different to the French.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. That's been really beautifully clear, and I'm sure it will encourage a lot of parents to look for a French curriculum school. Thank you.
An absolute pleasure, Fiona. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.